11 Democrats in the race for New York City mayor will be facing off on the debate stage coming up next month. Pix 11 is your local election headquarters, and we want to keep you informed ahead of the June primaries.
We also want to get to know each of the candidates. Today we're joined by former New York Assemblyman Michael Blake. So great to have you here on Pix 11 Morning News. Good to see you.
Great to be back.
You know, last time I talked to you, we spoke about why you decided to run for mayor at this point in time. But since our last interview, really a lot has changed. It is a very crowded field. The polls, with due respect, are not in your favor.
Yeah.
So how do you look at those numbers and say, I still have a chance?
Absolutely. Right now, polls are around name recognition. And that's why we have to focus on what we have to do before June 24th. You know, I think many times people would say that the Knicks didn't have a chance against the Celtics. We see where they're at right now by putting in that work. And so our focus has to be very clear around talking about affordability, being that counter to Donald Trump, and reminding people that elections break late when people start paying attention. And as was just mentioned, you know, you'll have two debates happening in June on the 4th and the 12th. And at that point, we'll make it very clear to everyone, if you're looking for a candidate who actually has a plan around affordability, if you're looking for a candidate who can actually factor against Donald Trump, that candidate is Michael Blake.
And you qualify for those debates, right?
We're ready.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about what's important to New Yorkers, primarily public safety. You saw what happened yesterday.
Yeah, in the
Horrible
Bronx.
tragedy. Yeah. 16-year-old killed. By a suspected a 14-year-old. It's kids killing kids.
Yeah.
I mean, what is your plan then to improve public safety in the city?
Well, it's incredibly tragic. I actually was walking with my mom back home when I saw the police cars going by because I live in the Morrisania area. Our condolences go out to the family in every regard. We have to get the guns off the street, and we have to make sure that our young kids have better opportunities so they're not even going down that road in the first place. We have to have greater focus on what's happening around those that are repeat offenders in those instances. But at the end of the day, if you're not finding more ways to make it very clear that everyone deserves to get home alive, full stop, then what else are we talking about? And very concretely, it's not just about the guns, which is essential, but it's also when you're riding on the subways and you're on buses, we need more mental health professionals as well. I've said very clearly, we have about 1,000 National Guard members. Why not have 1,000 mental health professionals? Because that is where the true crisis is also happening as well.
What about NYPD officers? Do you feel that there needs to be more NYPD officers, and how many more?
I'm not tied that there has to be a substantial increase beyond where it should be previously. That said, we have to be clear.
Which is what? What's previously?
When you're thinking about the threshold, I think we got to get another 5,000, give or take itself. But I think when you think of where we're at right now, the challenge that so many officers believe, why would I do this if a repeat offender is going to be back out on the street? And so you have to have changes. And I think one thing that did not happen in Albany around addressing discovery laws the way it should be, you will have that substantial challenges happening.
So how do you fight that if you're mayor, right? And the law is the law coming down from Albany. How do you work around that to get to the point you're talking about?
You have to first and foremost make it very clear, police officers do not want to be addressing the mental health crises that are happening. Have mental health professionals actually addressing that. Put body cameras on all officers so you have greater accountability, so you have greater foot patrol on the streets, and then you target specific neighborhoods. You take those steps, you will actually lead to more officers wanting to come back onto the force, because right now they're wondering, why would I take this chance if I feel like someone's going to be back on the street?
All right, well, let's move on to affordability that you mentioned earlier.
Absolutely.
You have a guaranteed income program that you want to implement. What exactly is it, and how's it going to work?
Absolutely. So before we get there, we are very focused that we need to have a local median income instead of area median income. Area median income incorporates other areas, including Westchester County. Essentially, for New York City, it's about $145,000 for a family of three. However, that's not actually helping you fully understand what's happening in your community. Moreover, New York City, we actually voted on having a true cost of living, in which Eric Adams has not implemented. The reason why you have to start there, if we actually understand your expenses as it relates to housing and childcare, then we can close that gap with a guaranteed income pilot specifically around those two fundamental expenses. Now, the difference between what I've laid out and another candidate is that I do believe you have to be very specific on those two expenses as opposed to just broad pilots. I have demonstrated, when you look at what happens for most families don't have $500 if an emergency happens. And if we're serious about helping a New Yorker, then you have to be very focused on, how am I helping you with childcare? How am I helping you pay your rent and your mortgage? Lastly, that also will help us be very focused. I have said we need to end credit scores being utilized for rent and mortgage applications. We're already doing that with HPD, so there's no reason why we can't go further. So again, to the guaranteed income pilot, you can pay for this. We know we can achieve this. You have about $2 billion of unclaimed fees that can be brought back within the city. So there is no reason why we're not helping more New Yorkers keep more money in their pocket as opposed to lose money.
So all of this that you're talking about, right, is it with money that the city already has? Or are you looking that you're going to need money from Washington? And the reason I ask that is about the relationship that you would have as mayor with President Donald Trump, right? To make sure that that relationship is, I guess, good to get the federal dollars you may need.
Well, I don't want it to be good to the point where, like Eric Adams, where Trump is saying that he thanked him for letting the charges off. But at the end of the day, we have money within our budget. You need someone who is a manager. And as the only person in the race who has actually been a part of a team that defeated Donald Trump when I was vice chair of the DNC, only person in the race with White House, State House, and local experience, I said very clearly, in a $114 billion budget, we can find the funds. $2 billion of unclaimed fees and fines, primarily around parking. Moreover, how do we reassess what's happening? NYPD had about $1.4 billion in overtime, not necessarily tied to public safety, but to the earlier question, getting more police officers back. Moreover, we should have a vacant apartment tax. For someone that is not living in New York City as their primary residence, we know that could generate about another $400 million. To the question, Dan, we can be very focused that regardless of what's happening in D.C., we can take care of home. And I've said very clearly, it's nice to have ideas, but you have to have a plan, and how do you pay for that? And I'm laying out how to do that. We've communicated this on our website at blakefornyc.com of how do you pay for this vision in a very realistic and practical way.
Well, you've also seen how the Trump administration has been handling immigration here in the city. What would you do to protect the city's sanctuary city status?
Well, as a son of Jamaican immigrants, and I know my mom is watching right now, let's be very clear that as immigrants, we have to be protecting our communities. And it is absolutely abhorrent that ICE is in schools and places of worship and community centers. As a reverend, I wouldn't tolerate that as well. We need to stay as a sanctuary city because it gives us protections for our residents. Because what we can't have happen is that we're wondering if even a U.S. citizen will be detained because of the Trump policies. Moreover, we have to have greater language access so that people understand what their rights are. We need to have more lawyers to support those when immigration hearings are happening. You have about 180,000 who did not have a lawyer during these hearings. And we have to make it very clear that our schools and other centers are designated as safe havens.
What about Rikers?
You have to close Rikers.
But should ICE be on Rikers?
Absolutely not. It's unacceptable in every regard. And we need to bring down the population at Rikers, which we can do. Most people at Rikers haven't been actually convicted of anything. They're just waiting there. So you have also the second largest mental health facility in America is Rikers right now. And so when we think about how do you address this, ICE should not be in our places to disrupt our communities. We should be holding people accountable, not disrupting families. And I've said very clearly, my job as mayor is to address the affordability crisis, to fight against Donald Trump, and to lay out a path on how do we reimagine the city, not destroy it in the way Trump and others are trying to do so.
Okay, Michael Blake, I appreciate you being here. And if you were mayor, and the Knicks were to win, would you give them a parade?
1,000%. I mean, you could see, I'm rocking the orange and blue right now. We're feeling very good. We're getting ready for the Subway Series this weekend. I mean, it's good times in New York right now.
That's right. That's right. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.